Think your parties get wild? Imagine a bash so crazy that people set themselves on fire, or a feast where you're waited on by demons. Throughout history, humans have thrown some of the most outrageous, extravagant, and downright bizarre parties you could ever imagine. From emperors who lost their minds to festivals that defied all logic, we're counting down the top 10 craziest parties and festivals in history. Get ready to witness decadence, disaster, and debauchery. Because history didn't just write the party rules, it burned them. Starting things off at number 10, imagine a holiday where roles flip, laws relax, and absolute chaos reigns. Welcome to Saturnalia, the craziest Roman festival ever, held in honor of Saturn, the god of time and agriculture. Saturnalia ran from December 17th to sometimes an entire week. Romans loved it because normal life went out the window. Slaves became masters for the day, and masters served them. Gambling in public? Legal. Wearing a fancy toga? Nah. Everyone dressed down in comfy, colorful clothes. Even the serious, strict Romans loosened up. Feasting, drinking, and gift-giving were mandatory. And we're talking wild parties where dignity disappeared. People shouted Io Saturnalia as they paraded through the streets. Think of it as a mix of Christmas, Mardi Gras, and the Purge, but funnier and with fewer consequences. At the heart of it all, the king of Saturnalia, a chosen guest who gave ridiculous commands everyone had to follow. It's like crowning someone the Lord of Misrule. Though Saturnalia faded with the rise of Christianity, echoes of it live on in our holidays today. So next time you're at a crazy holiday party, remember, you're just keeping the spirit of Saturnalia alive. Io Saturnalia. Coming up next at number 9, imagine a festival where everything is upside down. In medieval Europe, there was a party so wild, it made kings look like clowns. It was called the Festival of Fools, and it was absolute chaos. This wasn't your average celebration. For one day, peasants dressed like bishops, and the highest officials were replaced by total jokers. A lord of misrule was crowned, a mock king whose job was to spread pure madness. People paraded through the streets in masks, singing bawdy songs, drinking, and mocking authority. The church? Not off limits. Even cathedrals became scenes of ridiculousness, with fake prayers, donkey noises, and priests dancing on the altar. Why did they do this? Because for one day, the world's strict social rules vanished. It was a release, a wild, absurd, hilarious escape from the grind of medieval life. But the church didn't love this anarchy. By the 15th century, the Festival of Fools was too crazy to contain, and it was banned. Next up at number 8, the Ball of the Burning Men, 1393, one of the craziest and deadliest parties in history. Imagine this. French King Charles VI decides to throw a wild masquerade ball to celebrate a noble's wedding. His idea of fun? A charivari, where men dress as wild, hairy forest beasts. Charles and 5 of his nobles cover themselves in flammable pitch, resin, and feathers, and they dance through the hall with torches lighting the way. But here's where things go horribly wrong. A torch gets too close to one of the dancers. Suddenly, whoosh, they go up in flames. The fire spreads like lightning. Panic fills the room. Guests scream as the wild men become human torches. 4 of the dancers burn alive, their screams echoing through the hall. King Charles? He barely survives by sheer luck, hiding under a cloak, thanks to a quick-thinking noblewoman. This night of horror, known as the Ball of the Burning Men, is a chilling reminder of how wild medieval celebrations could take a tragic turn. Up next at number 7, imagine a party so wild it was meant to kick off a crusade. In 1454, Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, threw the Feast of the Pheasant, one of the most over-the-top festivals in history. This wasn't just any feast. There were live leopards, giant mechanical ships rolling through the hall, and even a massive pie that burst open to reveal a choir of living children singing. All this madness had a purpose. Philip wanted knights to swear an oath on a roasted pheasant to join a crusade against the Ottoman Empire. Yup, they were making world-changing promises mid-feast. The entertainment? Monkeys dressed as knights, elaborate dances, and knights wearing full armor while feasting. No expense was spared. They even had a life-sized automaton of a bearded angel fly in. The irony? Despite all the oaths and fanfare, the crusade never happened. The party was legendary, but the promises were forgotten. So was this a party for the ages, or just a massive flex? Next up at number 6, Venice during the Renaissance, a city of elegance, intrigue, and absolute wildness. And nothing captures this more than the Venetian Carnival, one of the craziest parties in history. Imagine, for weeks, this beautiful city turns into a chaotic wonderland. Everyone wears elaborate masks and costumes, hiding their true identities. Rich or poor, noble or peasant, everyone's equal behind the disguise. Masked figures parade through the streets, dancing, drinking, and living life without rules. The air buzzes with music, laughter, and sometimes scandal. Secrets and sins are hidden behind those elegant masks. Gambling, spying, forbidden romances. Carnival was a playground for things you'd never dare to do. Even the strictest laws were relaxed. Some even say the masks were so effective that criminals ran wild, unseen, and unknown. The Venetian Carnival was a swirl of beauty and darkness, a place where you could be anyone everyone or no one. It was freedom, mystery, and madness all rolled into one. So if you think today's festivals are crazy, the Venetians set the bar high. Halfway there. At number 5, picture this. Paris, 1894. The city of love, lights, and one of the wildest, most outrageous parties in history, the Parisian Infernal Ball. It was no ordinary masquerade ball. Hosted by the infamous French Count, this event was held at the infamous Maison d'Exposition, where the wealthy elite came to celebrate in unthinkable ways. The theme? Hell. The Infernal Ball took place on the night of January 24th and was decorated to resemble the underworld itself, gothic, eerie, and surreal. Guests arrived in the most jaw-dropping costumes. Imagine being surrounded by devils, demons, and creatures from hell. Attendees even wore fire-spitting masks. The crowd danced through the night as seductive and sinister music filled the air. It wasn't just the costumes that made the party unforgettable. It was the atmosphere. Fireworks burst in the sky, guests sipped champagne, and the night was filled with a dangerous thrill. But some say the deeper you went into that celebration, the more you felt you were partying with the devil himself. The Parisian Infernal Ball might have ended, but the legend of this crazy, over-the-top night still haunts the streets of Paris today. Up next at number 4. Did you know one of history's wildest parties happened over 2,000 years ago in ancient Alexandria? The Ptolemaic Alexandrian Banquets weren't just meals. They were extravagant festivals that pushed indulgence to its limits. Picture this: golden plates piled with exotic dishes like roasted peacocks and honey-drenched figs. Rivers of imported wine flowed as musicians, dancers, and even live leopards entertained the guests. But here's the kicker. These banquets were about more than just feasting. They were power plays. The Ptolemaic pharaohs hosted these to flaunt their wealth and connect themselves to gods like Dionysus and Isis. Guests were treated like royalty or manipulated like pawns. With opulence so extreme, these feasts blurred the lines between divine worship and absolute debauchery. Makes today's parties look tame, right? Next up at number 3. Imagine a party so wild, so outrageous, that even the gods themselves would be shocked. Welcome to Caligula's Imperial Bacchanalia, the craziest festival in ancient Rome. In 37 CE, Emperor Caligula took power, and he wasted no time turning Rome into his personal playground. Enter the Bacchanalia, his infamous, over-the-top parties that pushed decadence to new extremes. Caligula threw these parties with no rules. He banned all traditional Roman ceremonies and replaced them with chaotic, extravagant feasts filled with endless food, wine, and shocking indulgence. Imagine orgies, bizarre performances, and guests dressed as gods, engaging in activities no one dared to mention. He even appointed his horse, Incitatus, as a consul. Yes, a horse. Nothing was too strange for Caligula, and the Bacchanalia became a symbol of his rule: unpredictable, dangerous, and downright insane. These festivals weren't just about partying, they were about power. Coming up next at number 2, imagine this. Rome is in flames. Literally. The year is 64 CE, and Emperor Nero seizes the moment to host one of the wildest parties in history. Known as Nero's Great Fire Feast, this wasn't just a celebration, it was a spectacle of decadence and madness. While the city smoldered, Nero turned his palace into a glowing festival. He lit the gardens with torches, human torches. Yes, criminals were covered in pitch and set ablaze to illuminate his infamous night of excess. Guests feasted on exotic dishes, bathed in fountains of wine, and were entertained by the finest performers in the empire. Some say Nero even sang as the city burned, basking in chaos like a twisted conductor of destruction. Was it madness? Was it genius? Nero's Great Fire Feast remains one of history's most chilling parties. And at last, number 1, did you know that Tsar Peter the Great threw one of the wildest parties in history? In the 1690s, Peter decided that Russian nobility needed a lesson in humility and entertainment. So he created the all-joking, all-drunken synod of fools and jesters. Sounds fun, right? Well, it was chaos. Picture this: nobles dressed in ridiculous costumes, mock religious ceremonies, and endless drinking contests. The banquet was more than just a party. It was satire at its finest. Peter mocked old Russian traditions while introducing his vision of modernization. Guests were required to drink a lot. Refusing meant being publicly humiliated. Peter even had a giant drinking goblet called the Big Eagle, holding over 1.5 liters of booze. Imagine being forced to finish that. These events weren't just a way to have fun. They were Peter's way of dismantling outdated customs. But they left one thing clear: Peter the Great could throw a party like no other.